Okay, once a year we get these shellfish in. It's not something we can do very often because it's very, very pricey. They're an expensive item. They are termed crustaceans. Yeah. We've seen already an example of some crustacean, and we've got a crab somewhere which we can go and find in a minute. Yeah, yeah. So we can see another form of crustacean. The other classification of shellfish then would be what we call mollusks, and these would be the mussels, cockles, scallops, which we did last week. So today we're looking at lobsters, and they're quite unique really in themselves. They are caught in shallow coastal waters, European, particularly down around Cornwall, and they are caught also in the North Atlantic, American lobsters from Nova Scotia. And they take quite a long time to grow. The normal size of a lobster would be around about 1¼ pounds. And to reach that size, it takes about 7 years. And they shed their shells as they grow. Okay. So at various points in their growth, they will just take off their outer skin and reveal a skin underneath. And they can shed their shells up to 20 times in the course of 5 years. They're very territorial. Bottom of the sea is where you will get them. They fight a lot. And as you can see, this one is beginning to liven up a little bit. And that's why their claws are securely wrapped with elastic bands, because if you get your finger in there, it would give you a very, very nasty bite. The larger ones, they can grow up to as large as 5 kilos, 10 pounds in weight. And if you were deep sea diving, you could quite easily, if you came across one, if you've got your arm in between the tail, it could break your arm. So they're quite ruthless. As I say, they're territorial, they fight each other, usually over the hens, the female lobsters, and very often they lose their claws. Okay? Here we are, here's another crustacean. This is an edible crab, very, very good, large edible crab, as you can see. It's nice and lively already. Its claws are coming back. I can feel the tension as I'm holding it. That would be a good specimen of a crab. The other thing you need to think about with crustaceans is their weight. Relative to their size, they need to feel quite heavy, because the longer they're out of the sea, so they will lose weight. And whereas the shell will stay the same size, inside they'll shrink away, so there can be very, very little meat inside. The reason good firm grip there of my fingers. The reason we purchase them live is because they are quite a high-risk item as far as food safety is concerned. Okay? They come with all sorts of nasty viruses they can pick up, particularly from where the waters where they've been harvested. So they need to be alive so that we can absolutely be sure that the quality is there and the safety is there. You can't beat them when they're really, really fresh. So there we are, there's the edible crab. Coming back to our lobsters then, got two here. We've got a hen and a cock lobster, hen being a female. And you'll notice the female on here, but it's not quite so predominant. But the female here has got a broader flange, all right? The broader tail, and in the tail there would be all the eggs that she would collect. It is against the law to harvest lobsters less than 5 inches in tail length. They need to be 5 inches, yeah, and that is just over 5 inches. So I would say that these lobsters here, a little bit smaller than what we'd normally like, but these would be probably the minimum size. Okay. What else do we need to know about lobsters? Their colour. The colours, as you can see, are a blue, purple colour. And when cooked, they turn bright red. And most people wouldn't recognise that as a lobster unless it is bright red. So they live in habitat, bottom of the sea, they like dark places. So when we purchase them and we're not going to cook them straight away, the best place to keep them would be on ice, nice and cold, and covered with either sacking or newspaper in the bottom of a cold room. They'll keep fresher and better there until you're ready to cook them. Coming back to the crabhead, most of the meat is in the claws, and of course even on the lobsters, most of the meat you'll find in the claws and the tail. On the carapace, the main part of the shell, you don't get so much meat. Okay, most of it is, as I say, in the tail meat and the claws, and of course this would be a nice lot of meat in here. You can of course purchase crabs already dressed. Yeah? You can buy crab claws separately. It's got a lot of different uses. Okay. Here's an example of a very good lobster that's been in a fight, okay, as you can see. And I went into a restaurant a few weeks ago, and I had a lobster, and the waiter gave me this lobster, and I said, "Excuse me," I said, "this lobster's only got one claw." And the waiter said to me, "Well, I'm sorry sir, but that's because it's been in a fight." So I said, "Well, bring me the winner." Oh. Okay. Now, as you can see, now these would be termed cripples, okay? And you can purchase lobsters as cripples, and the price you pay per pound will be different to what you would have as a full specimen, as I say. And you can see this particular lobster there. Look, it's just starting to grow. Can you see? Look, that shell is starting, or that claw is starting to grow again, and that's very unique, and it's very unusual. You know, if we lose an arm or a leg, we've lost it forever. Whereas a lobster will grow another one. As I said, they're very, very territorial. Okay, coming back then to the cooking. It's important that when you're handling live animals and live fish, that you treat them with respect, and the slaughter of them has got to be done humanely. And there's several ways that you can do that. The first way is to put them into cold water and bring them to the boil. That is one humane way of doing it. And the other way is to plunge them into boiling water just for a few minutes before you actually start cooking them. You can prepare lobsters from cooked or from raw, and the two dishes that we're going to do today is lobster Americaine, which is prepared from raw lobster, and the other one we're going to do is lobster thermidor, and that's prepared from a cooked lobster. Got lots of different uses. Okay, it's a real delicacy, and the reason you don't see it on the menu very often is simply because one, availability, but more important, the price. These today have cost us £15.90 a kilo, and working that out with the two different sizes we've got, on the smaller ones, we're looking at probably around about £10 for the small lobster and £12 each for the larger one. And if you were selling that and putting that on the menu at a gross profit of 60%, you'll be looking at selling that at around about between £16 and £18 per portion, and that would only give you half a lobster. So your gross profit on a full lobster would be around about £35, yeah, approximately. All right. Okay. So, being so expensive, not many people can afford it. We've advertised this today on our college intranet, and the reason we've got so many lobsters here today is because we've been flooded with a lot of requests for them. Because people, from time to time, like to treat themselves. And it's one of these dishes, or one of these meats, which has got such a flavour of its own. So it's important that when you're cooking with it, that you don't introduce too many strong flavours. For example, it would be inappropriate to make a curry out of a lobster. Okay, such a delicate flavour. Okay, very nice cold. Yeah? The season is sort of spring, summer season. That's when they're at their best, and they're caught, let's say, in shallow waters. And where I come from, down in Cornwall, they are plentiful. And of course, the price we would pay down there would be a lot cheaper than what we pay for them here, because these have had to come from Poole in Dorset. there are other types of lobsters. There's another type of lobster that you can get, and these are called, it's going for me that one, they're called spiny lobsters. These are the smooth shell lobsters, okay, smooth shell ones. Okay. In the female, something else that the female houses inside is something called coral, all right, and it's the liver of the female, and the coral is a bright green colour, again a real delicacy, used in the making of sauces. And there's one particular dish called lobster, cardinal lobster, and where that is particularly used. Okay, right, here we've got a young female, and as you can see, the female has got eggs. Can you see all those eggs there? Okay, and she'll lay those eggs and they'll be fertilised by the cock lobster. And the flavour of a female lobster at the point just before the eggs are fertilised is at its best, when the flavour is really at its best. Out of the two, the male would have the stronger flavoured flesh. Okay. But there we are, as you can see. I think the fishermen there, by taking a young female full of eggs, are not doing themselves a favour taking them out of the sea, because they are going to deplete the stocks of lobster if they keep doing that. And I'm not sure whether that is in fact now legal to take them out with all their eggs on. But you don't often see that. So there we are. Okay, other than that's quite a young one. Right, we're going to we'll start to prepare them then, and this afternoon we've got quite a few people that want Thermidor, so we're going to cook half of them by boiling, and the other half we're going to cook from raw. And what we're going to do now is start Homard or lobster Americaine. And for that, certain ingredients that you need. You need brandy, you need white wine, good olive oil, okay. You need tarragon, okay. Little, small amount of garlic, shallot onion, okay. A little bit of tomato puree and fresh tomato concassé, which Paul is preparing for me over there. And okay. So the first thing to do is to select a pan, and in there we're going to put a little bit of olive oil. Get that nice and hot. And the other ingredient, of course, which I haven't yet mentioned, is a good fish stock, which we've previously prepared. And while that's coming up, we're going to take the lobster then, and okay. Now, the humane way of killing a lobster then is to take a large knife. Now, it's when you slaughter them, they can be a little bit mucky, so it's not a bad idea, so we didn't get too much mess, to put the board onto some paper. Okay. And the most humane way to do it is either, put it into boiling water to start with, or to cut it right at the crown in between the eyes. Okay, where you take a large knife. Okay, and on the back of the carapace there, you'll see there's like a little natural cross line going down there. Point of the knife in at the cross. And that is dead. Yeah, very, very quick. Yeah, that's the way to do it. Okay. The next thing we have to do, we pull off the claws. Take the elastic bands off now. And then we lay the lobster out and we dissect it. Okay. A little bit of resistance. That's where you can see the meat is in there. We just crack the shell. And then the remainder of the carcass is split open. Okay, now inside there, if you can see there, you'll see the sack. That is discarded, that is thrown away. We don't use that. Okay. We're ready to go. Make sure the pan's nice and hot now. And in goes the lobster. And the fish starting to change colour. Very nice bright red now. And already getting a nice smell. Next thing we're going to have to think about while that's coming up is we're going to chop up a nice little bit of tarragon, fresh tarragon. There we are. Okay, we've got plenty there for this afternoon. Okay, and then we're going to add some tarragon. Shallot, onion. Little inch of garlic, too much, just a little bit of garlic. That will be enough. The next thing we're going to do is flame it in brandy, so to get a bit of flambe or to get the brandy to burn, we need to just get a little bit of heat to the edge of the pan. Put your pan in the well. And of course, if you're going to flame anything in brandy, it's important that you don't pour it from the bottle. You pour the brandy into a glass, and you don't try the brandy too early in the morning. Just get a bit of get the edge of the pan really, really hot. There we go. Okay, and the next thing that goes in is our prepared fish stock. about 15 minutes. The tail meat, 10 minutes actually. That tail meat will be cooked. And the next thing we're just going to put in is a little bit of tomato puree. Then, because traditionally this sauce is quite red, the last ingredient that's going to go in is tomato concasse, but I'm not going to put it that in just yet. A little bit of white wine as well. And then we shall put a lid on there, and we've got a lid for these saucepans, have we? Oh, is there a lid for? Yeah. Here we are, I've got it, Paul. Here we are. Okay. So, 10 minutes. That's the flesh of tomatoes, which we've skinned and de-seeded, cut up into nice concasse squares. And a nice spoonful of fresh parsley, chopped parsley. Okay. And then in about another 5 minutes, that'll be ready to take the tail meat out. We're at the next stage, and now we're going to take the tail meat out and the claws out. Okay, so the meat there is cooked. There we are. You can see the nice bit of meat in the tail. Check that out. Claws. What we're left in here, you can see there, look, it's just the liquor and the small claws and the remains of the carapace, okay? And that is now the basis for the sauce. You've seen me kill a lobster one way. Here's another lobster. This is the young female lobster that we saw earlier. You can see there on the tail, lots of eggs. And I'm going to kill this one a slightly different way by putting it into boiling water to start with, and then I'm going to cut it in half and let you see inside. We should see the coral, which is a delicacy that's used quite a lot. It's also a good ingredient to put in with butter, make a coral butter for thickening the sauce. So I'm going to finish thickening this Americaine sauce with a lobster coral butter. So here we are, going to put it into boiling water. There we are.
How long will that stay in boiling water?
15 to 20 minutes, and you'll see it'll change colour as it cooks, as it boils. A little courbouillon you can put within that courbouillon, a little bit of vinegar, salt if you wanted to. I'm just going to straightforward plain boil this one. Okay, there we are. Okay, now you can see how our lobster has changed colour quite dramatically. No longer the nice blue colour that it once was. There we are. You can see the difference, the changes in the colour. That's frightened him a bit, that. Frightened me. Okay, it's the same colour that you would change if you were to jump in a bath of water that was boiling. Okay. I'm just going to chill this down a little bit. Got any ice there at all? Ice water? Okay. It's inside there. See this? It's humane. It's dead very quick. And inside here we should see, because it's a young female, had all those eggs on it, we should see inside there the green coral. And I'm going to make a little bit of a lobster butter. For that I need a little bit of butter. I'm putting just a tiny little bit of flour into that butter because I'm going to turn that into a vermanier, which is a thickening compound, just to give my sauce there a little bit of a thickness. Okay. And Sean's coming back with some ice. Still a little bit hot to handle. There we are. Now, it's a good point there, when you are cooking things like crabs and lobsters for chilling, the important thing is that we need to cook it, and the other important thing is that we need to chill it down as quickly as possible. This is where we use blast chilies. You know, that way you're going to ensure that the product that you're serving to the customer is going to be 100% safe. Now, we've got a pot of water on, it's not quite ready for our crab, and I think this crab is so large, it's certainly not going to fit in the pot that we've got over there. And I don't know who's ordered that, but a member of staff has ordered that, and they've got a real treat, haven't they? Yeah. Another thing I didn't say when we were talking about chilling, you can buy lobsters, of course, frozen, and I've seen them for sale frozen. But what you've got to remember is that the freezing process, particularly in lobsters, takes all the flavour out. You know, you're destroying that delicate flavour, so it's not something that in a good quality restaurant you would never ever use frozen lobster, you would use a fresh lobster. Okay, so there we are. I'm now going to split it open so we can have a look at the coral inside. You'll see a nice bright green. Again, we lay the lobster out, split it down through the carabis. Okay. Again, this one we're going to use for Americaine because it's not completely cooked yet. All I've done with this is humanely killed it. Okay. Now inside, there we are. Look, can you see that bright green coral? And coming a bit closer there, you can see that. And that is something that you don't get very often. You only get it in the female lobsters. For that, we take a little bit of butter, and into that we put this lovely, delicate green. There it is. Look. I know it looks pretty, doesn't look particularly appetising, but you'll see a difference this will make to the sauce when I add it in a second. Okay. Here we are, you can see a nice lobster butter. Just going to wash my hands. Now, you can get, there we are, beautiful smell coming from that, very, very distinct flavour all of its own. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is take the lobster butter. I'm going to stir that in. Come a little bit closer, you'll see how the sauce, consistency of the sauce and the colour of the sauce will change. There we are, you'll see that turn nice bright red in colour. Yeah, see there? Change the colour there. On to a nice bright red colour now. Nice colour. Next thing I do, that's now been cooking in there for 40 minutes, just the shell. The other thing to just tell you is that lobster shell will soften as it cooks. The longer you can leave it in there. For example, if you were using lobster shell to make a lobster soup, something we call a bisque, lobster bisque, the longer you leave it in the simmering away in the soup, so the shell becomes soft. And when you pass it, you can pound the shell and get all the flavour of the shell into the sauce. The sauce for lobster Americaine shouldn't be fine. It's a coarse sauce. A lot of people don't realise that. They'll put it through a fine shimmer, but the sauce for a lobster Americaine should be quite coarse, because when it's passed through a sieve, you pound it to get all that shell through. Now, if I had the time, I'd leave it in there a bit longer, but I think 40 minutes is enough for you to experience the flavour. Again, in a top quality restaurant, when we were working in London, we had this on the menu. It would be cooked to order. Okay? It would be actually cooked to order. People would have it fresh. It would be cooked and served immediately. It's not something you would cook, you know, as part of your mise en place the day before. It's one of those a la carte dishes. Okay, so next thing we're going to do then is strain that, and I'm going to strain it into another pan. We've got another pan over there, yeah. Pick up that one over there, please. And a conical strainer. Thanks, John. Right, okay, so we're going to strain that now. So, okay, and for that we're going to need something that I can pound it a little bit, and I think I'm going to have to use a nail. Squeeze that, as much of that flavour out of these shells as possible. Hear them cracking, giving away a little bit. Right, so what we've got there now is mainly just dry shell. Now, we never used to waste it. Even the shell at this stage we could use to make sauce Americaine, which we would use with other fish dishes. Or you could save them all up and make a lobster biscuit out of it. Right? Reduce for a couple more minutes. Won't need a lot of seasoning, I shouldn't think. But what I'm going to do now is prepare get the flesh out of the lobster. A clean board for that. Is there a clean board there?
There's a board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Upstairs and ask Mr. Moore if he's got any cooked rice. Any cooked rice.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, okay. Here we've got the shells. Inside the shells there, you can see the little quill comes out. Yeah, quite naturally. And inside there, we've got the claw meat. Okay, so a little gently pull out the claw meat. There we are. Okay, there's the claw. Can you see that? Again, in here. Out comes the quill. or a piece of claw. And all these bits of shell wouldn't get wasted. Again, they'll go back. And inside here we've got, again, going to waste it. Yeah, this is all meat. So it may only seem just a little bit. You know, people paying a lot of money, you can't afford to leave any meat behind. It's all got to come out of the shell. Open up the tail, and this is where the bulk of the meat is. Okay. Now something you do have to check on lobsters, sometimes you can see a digestional tract going down through the tail, and if you see any of that, you must be careful to remove that. Okay?
I'm going to warm it up.
It's alright, it's okay, it's only for a video. Alright, go on then. Warm it up, yeah, because you want to try it, don't you? Yeah, go over it, yeah, and there we are. Okay, so again, just check, make sure there's no digestional tract. There we are. Use the back of the knife just to crack the shell. Get to the meat, there we are. Don't leave any of the meat in. Good, just see how much meat there that's come out of that, just that one bit of shell. A little bit even in the very tail end. Now, what we normally do is keep, you see that fan tail? That's always nice to keep that just as a little bit of decoration so that the customers can see, yeah, that what they've got there is lobster meat. There's just a little bit of tail meat in there, look, which we can carefully pull out. Okay, again, yeah, look, it's only just a little bit of tail meat, but it's meat. And that little bit of tail, we keep that, reserve that back as a garnish. See that sauce now, perfect, or it's nice, just as I want it. Oh, is it on there as well? Can you take that completely off? There we are. So you can see what you've got there is the tail meat, look. Yeah, from the lobster. The carapace is mainly just shell, but that would be used again in a sauce or in a bisque. And then you've got the claws, yeah. And so you can see, look, from there we've taken the whole lobster. So here we are. This was our lobster before. Okay, now we've cooked it. There's the meat. Not a tremendous amount, but of such good quality. And we would not waste those shells. Okay.
How much did they pay for that? About £18?
Yes.
No, for half.
That one, yeah. This was a small one, so this wouldn't cost about £8 for you to actually buy it. So on food costing, if you looked at around about £24, £25 a portion for that whole lobster. Or if you had half a lobster, it would be half that price. It's something that people expect, yeah? All the people that have ordered lobster this afternoon from you, they know I put it on the intranet at £12 and no one has come back and said, sorry, it's too expensive. Everybody knows. You know, if you're going to buy a lobster or you're going to have a lobster, it's something very, very special and you pay a lot of money for it. In France, they have something called a plateau de fruits de mer. Okay? And on a plateau de fruits de mer, you would have lobsters, you would have crab claws, you would have oysters, you would have mussels, you would have langoustine. Now, langoustine is another little lobster, but it's a slightly different. It's what we call Dublin Bay prawn, you know, the nice big long langoustine. Now they don't have they've got the claws, but they haven't got the pinchers. But you know, and that would be a platter of fruits de mer, and you would pay anything up to £30 for a plate of plateau de fruits de mer. But it's something you can share with a partner. So you can have a plateau de fruits de mer, you'd have bread with it, you'd have wine with it, you'd have mayonnaise and maybe one or two other dips. And you'd make that the whole meal, you know, there's a much, in Spain and in France, there's a much more love of seafood than we in this country have, which is it's a shame. Because this is the land of fish and chips. And that is it. That's about the limit to... But that is changing. That is changing. People now are becoming more falling in love with shellfish. Okay, so we're going to decorate this and finish it. So for that, we're going to need a nice clean plate. Okay, just warm through. We've got our e-pilaf, which we've warmed through. Yes, here we are. Here we are. Yes, there we go. And just to present this, I'm going to use a little Americaine dish. A little bit of butter in the dish. Okay. I'm going to there for garnish, and then we could maybe have a look at it in the shell there, and the other thing, claw, yeah, just as a garnish. This is the shell. Not the customer's going to eat this, but so then they can see what they've got there is a lobster. Okay, the meat now, I'm just going to, I shall keep the claws whole. We've got to now just warm this meat through, so I'm just going to cut the lobster meat into nice collops, full collops, slice it. Okay, and then little soupçon of wine, just to help rejuvenate that sauce. The meat will go back in the sauce. Just to warm through. Slice there, hold it this one. There we are. Okay. There, the meat's on through.
Just that one, the meat.
Now this is traditionally the lobster. Lovely sauce. Nice it. Plate a little bit. The plate's just got a little bit too hot, really. There we are. Okay. And traditionally, you wouldn't normally serve lobster Americaine on a plate like that. you would serve it in what we call a timbal. All right. Now a timbal is you've got one, and you serve the rice separately. Okay, and a little bit of chopped parsley. It just needs a little bit of colour. Just put the sauce on there, so there we are. Okay, now it just remains for you to, come and have a taste. Don't mind you tasting. This is part of the learning experience. I've cooked one, okay. So now's the time for you to get a few tasting spoons. You can come and try the sauce. Right, come on in. Let me try it. Try it. So, nice. Yeah, we've hurried, for the sake of the video, we've hurried up the process a little bit. But, as you can see, it's very, very rich. Now you can see, I put no salt in that, but even that is reduced. It's quite strong, isn't it?